It is time for the news hour. Let's get right onto it. Members of Parliament and the civil society organizations reject Uganda National Oil Company's proposal to use oil funds at source. A cross-section of members of Parliament and the civil society organization have opposed a proposal by the government to have the Uganda National Oil Company spend oil revenue at source without prior approval by the August House. According to the bill, because all the petroleum revenues are deposited in the Petroleum Fund, as per Section 56 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, there is no mechanism provided for the Uganda National Oil Company as a license to meet its financial obligations under different contracts. Let's have more of the details. The Ministry of Finance tabled before Parliament the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2021 to allow the Uganda National Oil Company retain a portion of the proceeds from the sale of petroleum accruing from government instead participating interest in the production sharing agreements. The money, according to the government, is to meet government and Uganda National Oil Company's financial obligations in the tariff and the transportation agreement. However, a cross-section of members of Parliament and civil society organizations have opposed the proposal by government to have the Uganda National Oil Company spend oil revenue at source without prior approval by Parliament.
So what are the issues? I think the bill has two major issues that are of great concern. One is redefining petroleum revenue. The law states that the amendment is that everything else from oil revenue will be called oil revenue, except crude oil. That's the first concern. So if crude oil is not petroleum revenue, what will it be then? So that's our bigger concern. We think that crude oil constitutes more than 99% of what petroleum revenue is. So it should remain. The second is allowing spend at source to meet its obligations in the different agreements that it has signed. And we are saying that that is giving a blank check to a company, and yet they will be bypassing the appropriation process.
You see, it's very disappointing. And for any Ugandan who is outside there that is watching this good TV, should be sorry for this country. In those other years, we used to have Cry the Beloved Country. For years, the president of this country has promised the middle income. Middle income is not a geographical thing. Middle income must be the society that you have, must be living a given status level or given life. But whatever factor that was major in this was the expectations from the oil. Now, the expectations from oil are being eroded as we come towards the real harvest. People are really wondering what is going on.
According to the bill, because of the petroleum revenues are deposited into the Petroleum Fund, as per Section 56 of the Public Finance Management Act 2015, there is no mechanism provided for UNOC as a license to meet its financial obligations under different contracts.
We were also concerned in terms of the contracts about which these laws are not being in public. That is the tariff and transportation agreement, the shareholding agreement, the intergovernmental agreement, and the host government agreement for the pipeline. The laws are seeking to ratify these agreements, but they are only accessible in camera, and people like us in civil society can only access them either through a lengthy process of requesting to read them or through court, and that is not fair. If they are public documents, then they need to be in public so that we analyze from an informed point.
The East African Crude Oil Pipeline Special Provisions Bill 2021, presented by the Minister of State for Mineral Development, Honorable Sidronius Okasai, seeks to facilitate the full implementation of Uganda's obligations under the Intergovernmental Agreement and the Host Government Agreement.
The East African Oil Pipeline Bill is being debated. My view is that there are so many areas in this bill which need to be debated and streamlined. For instance, I think it is very unfair to us as Ugandans, as owners of the oil, because how can we just be receiving 20%. Where did that come about? Other than that, there are so many clauses in this bill that do not favor us as Ugandans, as owners of this oil. Therefore, when it comes to the floor of Parliament, we are studying it clause by clause. We are going to oppose the clauses that don't favor an ordinary Ugandan, that don't favor us as a country as a whole.
Today's meeting was our way of telling Parliament that while we shall not be there when you're passing these laws, these are the areas that you need to make sure that are either amended or are not passed or are passed in that form. Because as you heard during the meeting, parliamentarians are very busy people who may not find time to read 40 pages of a bill and also do research to see what the sector requires. So by us producing abridged versions and synthesized recommendations, we have helped them with ammunition or material they can use on the floor, which they would otherwise either require private researchers to do for them or find it complicated to comprehend. So
some stakeholders say that the governments of Tanzania and Uganda granted the project a number of incentives to ensure the pipeline is low cost and the tariffs fixed. These incentives can only be put in effect by the enactment of the enabling legislation.
We are saying that the whole bill is unnecessary. There is only one clause we need to change, to bring the URA model into the Public Finance Management Act to say that UNOC can collect the petroleum revenue, spend at source, but must spend on only activities appropriated by Parliament and with the authority of the minister. So that is basically it, and everybody will go home happy for two reasons. One, the appropriation role of Parliament will be strengthened, not diluted. Two, UNOC will be given liberty to spend money at source, and its operations will not be affected in any way.
With this one, there are bills where we have lost. But for the interest of Ugandans, and we are calling upon Ugandans to join hands. For this one, whatever it takes, whether it requires us to turn tables in Parliament, we shall turn tables in Parliament. But we can't allow people to rob Ugandans. This is a broad day, light thuggery, we can't allow that.
The new law will provide for the tariff regime applicable to the project during the different phases of operation, including the construction and operation period. The new bill will also enable government and the Uganda National Oil Company to pay the transportation tariff in kind, ensure that the project obtains required authorization in a timely manner, as well as grant and protect land rights of the project, including land acquisition. According to the bill, because all the petroleum revenues are deposited in the Petroleum Fund, as per Section 56 of the Public Finance Act 2015, that is the Public Finance Management Act, there is no mechanism provided whatsoever for the Uganda National Oil Company as a license to meet its financial obligations under different contracts. The East African Crude Oil Pipeline, Bill 2021, presented by the Minister of State for Mineral Development, that is Honorable Kasai, seeks to facilitate the full implementation of Uganda's obligations under the Intergovernmental Agreement and the Host Government Agreement. So why does the civil society organization, together with the MPs, reject this proposal? It's because they do not want the Uganda National Oil Company to use oil funds at source. What does this actually mean? That they do not want the Uganda National Oil Company to use money that has not been approved by Parliament. In that, what the Uganda National Oil Company wants is to receive money direct from the government, use it, and only bring back money that it has not used. Remember, among all the sectors in the government, you are supposed to use money as it has been allocated to you. So it is always the parliamentary committees that sit and budget with the other government institutions. Then they get to know how much money does such a sector need. They do an estimation. That is where you see in most cases money may not be enough, but because it was just estimated. And once money is not enough, the institutions come back to government to seek for it. However, the Uganda National Oil Company wants to receive money directly from the government, use that money, and after using that money, it is after they are left with some funds, that is when they will actually return back. And something the members of parliament, together with the civil society organization, are rejecting greatly, saying that UNOC's proposal, that is the Uganda National Oil Company's proposal, to use oil funds at source should not happen in any way or the other, because parliament has to first approve, just like the way it approves certain bills that are passed through it. Because when you approve it, it goes through the president, and then it is asserted into law. That is according to the bills that are always passed through parliament. So the same situation here. That is why the civil society organization are rejecting it, but calling upon the members of parliament to first approve any money that is meant to go to the Uganda National Oil Company. But, however, this is still another battle out there. The Ministry of Finance tabled before Parliament the Public Finance Management Act Amendment Bill, the Public Finance Management Amendment Bill 2021. This is to allow the Uganda National Oil Company retain a portion of the proceeds from the sale of petroleum accruing from government state participating interest in the production sharing agreements. The money, according to the government, is to meet government and Uganda National Oil's financial obligations in the tariff and transportation agreement. However, a cross-section of the members of parliament and civil society organization have opposed the proposal by the government to have the Uganda National Oil Company spend oil revenue at source without prior approval by Parliament. And this is evident because it is by law that the August House of the Legislature has to actually approve something. That means that people, remember, the members of Parliament represent different constituencies. So when they come out to approve, it means the constituencies that they have approved, or the majority of the population in the constituency that they represent, that voted for them into power, will actually agree with what their member of Parliament has approved. Okay. Now, according to this bill, because all petroleum revenues are deposited into the petroleum fund as far as Section 56 of the Public Finance Management Act, there is no mechanism provided for the Uganda National Oil Company as a license to meet its financial obligations under different contracts. The East African Crude Oil Pipeline Special Provisions Bill 2021, presented by the Minister of State for Mineral Development, Honorable Okasai, seeks to facilitate the full implementation of Uganda's obligations under the Intergovernment Agreement and the Host Government Agreement. Some stakeholders say that the governments of Tanzania and Uganda granted the project a number of incentives to ensure the pipeline is low cost and the tariffs fixed. These incentives can only be put in effect by the enactment of an enabling legislation. The new law will provide for tariff regime applicable to the project during the different phases of operation, including the construction and operation period. Not only that, however, the new bill will also enable government and the Uganda National Oil Company to pay the transportation tariff in kind. All right, away from that, let's move on to the other story. Stationery business is still recording losses even after universities reopening. It being one of the businesses which usually made a lot of profit once students are back to their different universities. Due to the prolonged closure of universities, a number of businesses have been negatively affected, including those dealing in stationery. Let's have a look at this story as Barija Andrew reports.
Due to the long-time closure of universities, quite a number of businesses have been negatively affected, which directly depend on the education sector, stationery inclusive. That, however, early November, the institutions of higher learning were reopened, hence to some extent resurrecting the independent business, mainly the stationery dealers. Stationery products can vary, but typically it includes greeting cards, bespoke invitations, ad prints, patches, pins, notebooks, calendar, photocopying and printing at large. During an interview with Smart 24, a one Vanessa stationery dealer around Akawa Small Gate says they have faced rent challenges, which in turn has forced some dealers to vacate.
Long-time closure has been so bad when it comes to the stationery bit of it, because you find that most of the money that we get comes out of these people going back to school, whereby they come and they're like, we want reams of paper, we want this, we want that, cutting. If these people are home, which means no one is going to come and ask for a pencil, no one is going to come and ask for a pen, No one is going. The only good thing with stationery is that they don't get spoiled, they don't get rotten. You can keep them wherever, but it still comes down to you, because where you're staying, where you're putting this stock, people need their money, like for rent. Talking mugamba nti nawe abantu balaba tebasoma. Ye tebimukwatako naye yasettinga business ye nga yakola ki kujja kusolooza. So naye oba wakiraba nti business yo, it cannot be affected by anything that comes shaking around the world. So pay them back the money. So you find that many people have run out of this business because of this long-term COVID.
At the stationery dealer, Bakunda Steven says the cost of production is high. For example, the equipment they use in the stationery is expensive and that their prices vary with time.
The challenges are always there in such a business, like the prices of things we use. Let me say the stationery machine, like papers, they are always increasing in price day by day. The machines we are using, like the printers, the photocopiers, the whatever, that's the scanners, you find that what you have bought today, you find a different price tomorrow. In case that machine has a fault and you have to buy another one, you will not find it on the same price. We have a challenge like these people of KCCA, they think that this business is so profitable and they're always on us 24/7. So if let's say you want to do this and this and the other for them, you may even fail to do anything. It's like when you see a taxi with these people who police officers, what we call traffic officers, they always look at a taxi as if.
That, however, on the other hand, dealers say that dealing in stationery is a highly profitable venture.
You have multiple skills besides what you studied. And then the second thing is financially, you get to be independent financially, whereby you don't always have to depend on other people for a living. And the other thing I can say that I'm benefiting out of this is I get friends, I get contracts now, like you guys have come here, you've phoned me, this is now my location. I got a location, you get, somewhere whereby someone can say, if I'm going to see Vanessa Gold, she's working from Nakawa, I can meet her there, you get. And then there are also these kind of things whereby maybe someone comes here, you do for them some good work, and then they take your contact, they refer someone else to your work, like that. If it's the season. Now, like, let's say these guys, when they are registering a new entrance, you can even go home with 3 million. Because now, looking at the location where I am, we are only 2 studios, and the population in there is big. You get. So, bona abera batunuri defe for getting services. But then if it's not the season, that is why it's always good to be multiple skilled. If it's not the season, you'll find that like you cannot do any kind of stationary work or what. You'll find that you can even go home with 5,000.
Creative and talented entrepreneurs can find profit and career fulfillment from starting their own stationery business. With an eye on creative design, personalized products, and new trends, stationery business owners can meet customer needs. And with universities back on track, there are high expectations for the stationery business.
The business is there, and the only catchword I realized was the 3 million part. So imagine making 3 million on a day. That is when we talk about centering yourself in an area that brings in a lot of money, or in an area that is catchy. But when there are no people, whether there are no students, because that is the target market in Nakar, it being where we have the Mackay University Business School, then we also have the Nakawa Institute around there still. So you can only imagine how much money they make from such institutes, as well as the students. So if at all this doesn't happen, then I pretty much guess there would not be any money. And due to the long time closure of universities, quite a number of businesses have been affected. But if you look at the stationery business, this has been hurt badly because these stationery businesses benefit more when the students are back. They are the ones that normally utilize them to help them during their given assignments at school. And not only that, also they use the same stationery to actually carry out various things, to buy the pens, the ream of paper, books, and everything, do photocopy and all that. Okay, away from that, this is also going to be our center of focus in the topic of analysis, as we'll be talking about the stationery business so far and how is it faring in Uganda amidst this time when schools are only partially and reopening in one way or the other, because we do understand as well that most universities stayed with the online lectures. Okay, away from that, let's move on to the international scene as we start off with EasyJet. As EasyJet says that Omicron has weakened the bookings. Johan Ludgren, the chief executive officer of EasyJet, says it's too early to assess what the full impact might be, saying that the airlines need to see how things settle down. More of the details.
Johan Landegren, Chief Executive Officer EasyJet, says it's too early to assess what the full impact might be, saying the airlines needs to see how things settle down. He also says bookings for next summer were largely unaffected, with strong pent-up demand likely to see a return close to pre-pandemic 2019 levels. The Omicron variant has led to the imposition of new travel rules. The new strain, which emerged in South Africa, had an immediate impact on the services of long-haul airlines such as British Airways and Virgin Atlantic, but as the virus spreads, there are fears that short-haul European airlines such as EasyJet could also be hit. Landegren says his airline had not so far seen the same impact on bookings as when the previous restrictions were introduced. He said the customer bookings changes had mostly been people moving imminent trips to early next year. Landegren also says he was supportive of the swift reintroduction of the red list crackdown on travel, but there is a question mark around blanket PCR testing for infection. The airline, which also revealed another full-year loss in excess of £1 billion, said it has seen signs that the demand is softening, but that it is not too soon to say what impact the new variant will have on the industry. It is said there are signs that winter bookings have started to weaken and some travelers are delaying trips to early next year, with city destinations particularly affected. Already in Britain, the government has said arrivals will need to take high PCR tests by the end of their second day in the country and to self-isolate until they get a negative result. Landegren questioned the government's approach. His comments came as the company posted a loss of £1 billion for the year ending in September, an 18.6% improvement on last year's £1.27 billion loss, which had been EasyJet's first full-year loss in its 25-year history. The latest annual report came amid a 52% reduction in revenue to £1.5 billion, which was partially offset by a 33% fall in headline costs to £2.6 billion. Despite the uncertainty, EasyJet said it is still hopeful for a recovery to pre-pandemic levels of trading. The group said it expects to ramp its flights to around 65% of pre-pandemic levels in the current quarter through December, increasing to 70% in 3 months to March and return to around 2019 levels in the summer quarter.
The airline based in Britain, which also revealed another full-year loss in excess of £1 billion, which is $1.34 billion, said it has seen signs that demand is softening, but it's too soon to say what the impact of the new variant will have on the aviation industry, more so because it is actually one of those industries that are greatly affected once COVID hits in. I'd say there are signs that winter bookings have started to weaken and some travelers are delaying trips to early next year, with city destinations particularly affected. So therefore people are now keen on where to travel to because of the fact that COVID is actually coming through. The Omicron variant has hit different cities already. Already in Britain, the government has said arrivals will need to take a high standard PCR test by the end of their second day in the country and to self-isolate until they get a negative result. So you can definitely see how these countries are working hard to see that the Omicron variant does not affect them greatly. If you look at the latest annual loss, came amid a 52% reduction in revenue to £1.5 billion, which is $2 billion roughly, which was partially offset by a 33% fall in headline costs to £2.6 billion, which is 3.47. If you look at that, that is roughly 3.47 billion. And continuously, look at despite the uncertainty of the EasyJet, it said it is still hopeful of a recovery to pre-pandemic levels of trading. The group said it is expecting to wrap up its flights to around 65% of pre-pandemic levels in the current quarter through December, increasing 70% in the 3 months to March, and return to around 2019 levels in the summer quarter. That is because most of the economies, world economies, were expecting to get back by 2022 or hopefully 2023, but with the fact that there is the Omicron variant, it is actually scaring the potentials of these economies to actually get back to business. But anyway, the aviation sector is actually still in the eyes of many to see how are they going to survive with the prevailing conditions here and there, as you can definitely see. So the bookings are greatly unaffected so far for the next summer, but though the ones for this festive season, the winter bookings have greatly been affected with the fact that most people are now shunning away from booking for more tickets or for travel tickets as well. Okay, and that's it for the news hour. When we do return, we head into the topic of analysis, the topical analysis segment, together with the Hamis Chigundu book review. Stick around.